Okay, so next let's look at class selector. So I'm gonna copy paste the same file. So I'm gonna say class. Okay, class selectors are custom selectors. Okay, it's custom because you predefine whatever you want as a name. I'll call this as a class selector. Okay, and how do you define a class selector? You put it as a dot. So when you mention anything as a dot, it becomes a class selector, means it is not an HTML tag, but you can assign this selector to any HTML tags. We'll look at how we're gonna do it. And remember, anything that you mention dot in the front, it becomes the class selector. Okay, this is a type selector, so we'll convert it into a class selector. We'll say red border. Okay, and this one is a green border. Okay, and this one we will say it's a text italics. Okay, you see how I'm doing it? I'm putting a dot here and I'm mentioning this as a class selector, which is a custom name. So anything I can put name here. Even when I put h1, it doesn't really apply to the h1. Okay, that's basically you are mentioning as a custom name. So you can use this name to apply to any HTML tags. Okay, now that we have defined our CSS, let's apply this class to the HTML tags. Okay, you can see the HTMLs are plain simple. No CSS has been applied it here. So let's apply this class to the tags. Okay, how to apply class to an HTML tag? You can say class. Okay, that's a property of HTML tag. Then now you can say it is green border. Okay, now you can see the green border has appeared. Similarly for p tag, you can say class. Okay, you can say red border. Okay, and you can see the red border here. You can also see that I'm not typing the dot. Okay, I'm not saying dot green here. Okay, this dot is just to indicate this is a class. If you remove this, it becomes a type selector, so it doesn't understand whether it's an HTML tag or not. So to mention to the browser that this is basically a class selector, you mention with a dot. Okay, now this becomes a class and you can apply it to any HTML tag via the class property. You can even loop the class selectors, means you want to have a green border plus you want to have another property called text italics. Okay, you can see the text has become italics and you just have to attach with the space. There's no comma here. You add multiple type selectors via the space and you want to have the same text italics for paragraph. You can just mention like this and it becomes italics here. Well, class selectors are basically one of the important selectors that you will work a lot in CSS, and you will find yourself most of the time creating the class selectors and applying onto the HTML. So make sure you work through this class selector and understand how it works. There's one more type that you can have in class selector is assigning the class selectors to a specific HTML tag. Let's say you want to assign a green border only to h1 tag, right? You want to do that, and what you want to do is you want to apply this green border, okay, only for h1 tag. So how you're going to do it? You mention the type selector, that is nothing but the HTML tag dot the class selector. Well, this rule is saying that the green border class selector is applied only for h1 tag. So if you apply in green border to p tag or any other tag, it will not work. So you can see here the width is increased to 15 px. Let's assign this green border to the p tag and then see whether the border width will be increased or not. And here we have mentioned the rule as make sure this green border only works for h1 tag. That's what you're saying it here. And if you remove the red border and apply green border, you can see the border is green but the width is not been applied because this condition only applies for h1 tag. Okay, so that's how you work with class selectors. We're going to look at other selectors as well, and then we'll continue to use class selectors as we go forward. Okay, so that's all about the class selector, and let's look at other selectors now.